Hello, WFG teammates. We're here in the Atlanta studio with a live audience to do specific training on our business format system. Our goal is to help you understand the principles and the keys that will help you succeed here at WFG. You know, we have a vision, we have a mission, but we have a system. Our vision is to build the fastest growing, soon to be largest, most dynamic, well-respected financial services organization in the entire industry. Our mission is to help families become financially secure. That's a mission that motivates. I was thinking a little earlier about all the causes. There's many great causes in this world. There are great health causes and charitable causes and religious causes. But from a business standpoint, I don't think there's a greater cause than that of helping families become financially secure. And we have a system. Our system is so critical, you all. It's important that you understand our system is the vehicle that'll help us achieve our vision and our mission. The dictionary describes a system as a set of interrelated ideas or principles, and that's what we have at WFG. We have a system that's duplicatable, it's transferable, it's interrelated ideas that help you understand how to prospect, how to make sales, how to recruit, getting your people licensed, and going all the way through our training system. It's a retention system, it's a leadership development system. And all these things can help you in building your business and becoming successful here. I've long been taught that you find a plan that works, and our system works, our plan works. You do it over and over again. I've been taught that the rapid repetition of the right, simple things can lead you to an inevitable explosion in our business. And then you develop a cookie-cutter exactness, a coachability to do it exactly like others are teaching, and again, you can succeed. I believe the size of your success is inseparably connected with the size of your belief in our company, your belief in our cause, and your belief in our business format system. There's 5 of our best leaders, our greatest leaders, that are going to be training you today on these business format system steps, these 6 steps that can lead you to success. And I believe if you'll learn those steps, if you'll focus, work hard, master the implementation of these, and then get good at teaching them to others, you can build an incredible business here, you can help others build a great business here, and your dreams can come true here at WFG.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. I'm very excited to be here today. We're talking to you about the 6 steps, the business format system, and I feel that I probably have one of the most vital steps in the entire 6 steps of the business format system, which is prospecting. You know, when I first started in this company, I was trying to figure out how to build my company and build this business with World Financial Group, and they told me I had to have a business plan, and I didn't know what that really was, and I started to figure out who I wanted to contact or how do you get clients and stuff like that. And one thing I did, and I learned as I started to read the business format system manual, is that I wanted to talk to my sister and my cousins and my family members, but I just didn't think that I had the credibility to do that. And so I deleted a lot of names. I just didn't want to talk to them about our company or this company that I'm working with. And so one thing I want to encourage all of you to do is that you need to put together a top 25 list, okay? And when you put this top 25 list, I want you to add names to this top 25 list and never delete names, you know? I want you to understand that we've got a memory jogger available for you so you can go back and add these names to your top 25 list, and as you're putting all these names down, I mean, we have in that memory jogger, you'll see different people that you never even thought, for certain people you may have forgotten that really needs to see and hear our story with World Financial and World Financial Group. And so one thing that I want to really encourage you to do is sit down with your leaders, okay, and your marketing directors and different field trainers that are in your office and in the field with you, and sit down and write down all these names, and don't delete anybody's names. And we have a certain type of profile that we're looking for you to identify and put down on this list. And one thing I did when I first started in the company is I started writing down people that were unemployed, and you know they were real young and wasn't business savvy, and so we have a profile that you want to look at. The 7 or 8 steps now, or the 8 profiles that we have is number 1, you want to find out people that are at least 25 years of age, that are married with children, they have homes, and they're dissatisfied with their profession or their work, and they're ambitious and motivated, and they have that entrepreneurial mindset, you know. And to me, of all those different things, it's not particularly are they a homeowner or do they have children. To me, out of those 7, 8 things, I think the most important ingredient there is if they're dissatisfied. I always felt that I have someone in my office, a very young lady, who did not meet those criteria. She was relatively young when she first started. She was 23 years old. She was not married, didn't have a home. She had a job, though, and she was not making $50,000 or $40,000. She was probably making about $24,000 a year, but she was ambitious. And when we first sat down with her, it was interesting to find out how mature she was and for her age and how motivated and dissatisfied that encouraged her to really pursue something that she really wanted to do. And so I want you to put down those things in your top 25, and in your top 25 you'll see little circles there that you could circle as numbers 1 through 8, and you just circle those so you can share with your trainer exactly the kind of person that we're going to be talking to. And there's 3 different markets, you guys, that you can start to penetrate or to work with. Number 1, the first market that you want to work with is your natural market. Okay, your natural market are your family and your friends and people that you know that you have some sort of day-to-day activities. And one thing that I want you to understand is that when I first started, I was talking to you earlier about my sister. My sister, she's a very strong critic, and she's kind of a black and white type of girl. And when I first sat down and I wanted to talk to her about this, I mean, she kind of gave me the cold shoulder, and she wasn't very interested in this thing. And it was interesting as I started to tell her more about what we were doing in our story. It was interesting as she sat down and I just wouldn't give up on her. She really realized that there was a need for financial guidance. And so she started asking me a few more questions, and of course I didn't have all the answers at the time. And I asked her, I said to my sister, I said, Stella, I really need your help, need your support. I mean, I just kind of told you about our company, but I don't really know the dynamics of it. And I'd like to have you sit down with my trainer, and he can give you more information about our company. And so I put her name down. And my best friend, one of my best friends, his name was Ruben. And it was interesting because when I called Ruben, he wasn't very excited either. You know, he just kind of asked me about my background. John, you don't have experience in financial services. And I said, that's okay. I'm learning. I'm trying to get into a new profession, a new career. And so I told him the same thing. I said, Ruben, I really need your help. If you can help me out, I'd like to put you in front of my trainer and my leader, and he can give you more information about our company. And there were certain people, as I had my first 2 experiences with my sister and my best friend, I started to, again, as I went back earlier and said you not to delete names, I started to delete names, and I didn't want to call my warm market and people I knew, my family and friends, I didn't want to call them. And so what happened was they did not know that I was in the financial service business. And what ended up happening is that I had a family friend that we're very close to. They're kind of like, I would say, godparents, if you would. And they actually want to go and refinance a house. And they want to buy some insurance and do some financial planning stuff. And so they actually, it was interesting because they didn't do the business with me. They actually went to another company, and they actually did their own financial plan with another financial service company. They actually did their mortgage with another financial service company. And really, I lost that business. And so when I turned to them and I said, why is it that you didn't do business with me? And it was interesting to find out that they were saying to me that they did not know I was in financial services. And so I lost that business because, again, I was embarrassed to talk to people. I was ashamed maybe of getting some neglect or a rejection or whatever it might be. And so I neglected to let them know I'm in business in financial services. Let me ask you something. Remember when you first graduated from high school or you graduated from college, what did you do? You had these little cards that you sent out to everybody letting them know that you just graduated, you just got this new job, that you just, you're going into a new profession, and you had these announcements that went out to inform people in your warm market, your family and friends, that you were basically going into that career, you're going into this business. Well, that's no different than what we do here, is to let people know that you're here in this business and that you're learning and you're training and you're really trying to build something. And so I really want you to understand that there is a lack of financial education out there, the financial literacy, and it's your responsibility that the people around you that are close to you that need this information, financial guidance and whatever it might be. Now, you may not have all the answers at first, and that's why we really want to encourage you to sit with your trainer and have your trainer go out with you and sit in front of your natural market and help you build your business that way. What was one of my other best friends, his name was Charles. Charles and I had not spoken in a while, And so I called him up just to do some lunch, and I wanted to let him know I was just starting in a new profession. And so I met with him, and we went out to lunch. I got to his house. We started talking. I said he was living in this very, very beautiful home. And I said, hey, I said, this is a pretty good house for the kind of profession you're in. And he says, well, actually, this isn't my house. I'm actually house sitting. And I said, well, that's interesting that you're house sitting, you know, and then you got this beautiful home and all that. I mean, you ever thought about going into some other business? And we just started talking a little bit. And what was interesting is that afternoon, the person that he was house sitting for, the lady came into the house that afternoon. Obviously, it's her home, and so she came in. And so I did not know her. She was a total stranger to me. And so I want to talk to you about getting into another market. We call that the friendship market. Okay, and when she first walked in, I introduced myself, and I said, hi, I'm John Shin, and you know, Charles introduced me, said this is a friend, et cetera, and we started to develop a rapport, if you would. And so what we did is we put together for you in the business format system, if you actually look at it, there's something called FORM. It's F-O-R-M. And so how did I stir up a conversation with this lady as I started to understand what F was and what O was, what R was, what M was, and you know, we did, I don't like literally go F-O-R-M, but I just kind of started talking to her about, you know, her family. I said, wow, this is a beautiful home. And I said, I'm excited that Charles is here and house sitting for you. And we just started talking, you know. And the first thing I asked her was the O. And O really stands for occupation. And I asked her, hey, so I said, what do you do? And she said she was in fashion design. And I started asking her about fashion design. And we started developing a relationship and talking about her occupation. And I want to go over a series of questions that I use in the field to really develop relationships and turning strangers into friendships. First question I asked her is, I said, so what do you do, which is her occupation, and she says, I'm in fashion design. The next question I asked her was, I said, hey, I said, how long have you been doing that? And she says, oh, I've been doing it for about 20 years. And I said, wow, that's a long time. I said, like, well, how do you like what you do? And she said, well, it's okay, you know, it pays the bills. I got a pretty hefty mortgage, as you can see, but, you know, I mean, what could I do now? And all of a sudden, I started to sense a little bit of dissatisfaction there, you know, which is one of the 7 profiles that we talked about earlier. And so I said, so how do you like what you, I mean, you don't seem very excited about what you're doing. And she said, no, not really, you know, I mean, at this, I'm too old now. And I said, well, how old are you? And she said she was in her 40s. I said, that's not old. I said, you know, that's still young. I mean, you've got a great future ahead of you. And I said, well, what exactly is it that you don't like about your profession? And she says, well, it's just long hours. It's very tedious, and it's stressful. We have time guidelines, this and that, and she just didn't seem very happy with what she did. And I said, well, let me ask you something. I mean, now that I found out what her dissatisfaction was, it gave me an opportunity to start talking to her about M, which is her message, which is our message. When I piqued her interest, I said, you've got great people skills, and you seem very motivated. You seem like a very well business-rounded individual. I said, our company is looking for people just like you, and we're expanding all over the 50 states and internationally into Canada and stuff. And I said, you know what, I'd like to sit down with you. I don't have all the information, but I do know that my manager, he's a marketing director with the company. I'd love to have him sit down with you and tell you more about our company and the opportunities. And that was kind of it. I just kind of planted a seed. And it was really interesting because within 2 days, she called me back. I didn't even have to call her. She called me back to find out more information about our company. And so that kind of gives you an idea of how to work that O and that occupation, And the other thing that was interesting is I went to a car wash one time. And we're sitting out there at a car wash. I'm sitting there mid-afternoon, just sitting there, and a bunch of people were getting their car washed at the same time, and we're starting to have this relationship. And I looked at a few people out there, and we kind of had eye contact, and I kind of said to one of the ladies, I said, hi, how are you? And she said, well, I'm doing great. And I said, so what do you do? And we went down to O, and we started, and she says, I'm in real estate. I said, wow, that's great. That probably gives you an opportunity to get out in the field more and not just stay behind a desk. And she says, oh, yeah. She says, I can't stand behind a desk. I mean, I've got the personality. I got to get out in the, in the open and stuff. And I thought, well, that's great. And I said, so what does your husband do? Are you married? And she said, well, yeah, my husband's, I'm married. And I said, well, what does your husband do? And it turns out he's an engineer. And I said, well, that's great. You have a family? You have children? And she started saying, well, yeah, we have 3 kids. And I said, well, that's great. I said, I've got 4 kids. And we just started talking, and we started talking about family. And all of a sudden we started talking about how hard it is to raise children, and because we're never prepared to raise children, and we started talking about it. She said, I know. We started talking about babysitters, and what we have to do is take them to games, and we just really started building this rapport, you know, and all of a sudden I started taking this stranger and turning her into a friend, and we started having this great common ground. All of a sudden I said to her, I said, how do you like what you do in real estate? I mean, how long have you been doing it? She says, 2-3 years. Wow, that's great. I said, how do you like it? And she says, well, it's pretty hard, you know. I mean, you know, it's commission-based, it's this, and it's just hard to find the clients. And, you know, the company I work with, the training isn't all that great. And all of a sudden, guess what started happening again? I started to find what? Dissatisfaction, going back to the original seven things. And I said, you know what? Our company is looking for people just like you know, and I think we might have a solution for you. I mean, I don't make any guarantees, but I think that we have a very viable solution, but I don't have all the answers, and I'd like to maybe have you talk to my marketing director. He's one of the great leaders in the company. If you give me your name and number, you have a business card? And sure enough, she goes, yes, here's my business card, and all of a sudden, here's my cell phone. They gave me their cell phone. I handed it over to my leader, and my leader made the contact. We got it. And so I want you to understand that F is for family, O is for occupation, R is for recreation, and that's another great thing. Sometimes you might ask him, say, hey, what do you do for sport? Do you play golf? Do you do some tennis? What kind of activities, curricular activities do you do? And maybe you do martial arts, or you dance, or whatever it might be. And so I start to ask a lot of questions. And I want you to understand that our business, when you control the point of contact and when you're prospecting, you'll always want to make sure that you are the one asking questions. I've always learned that the person who asks questions is always in control. And I'll give you a good example of that, is that when my wife and I, we learned this very quickly. I used to come home and my wife would say, where you been all night? And I said, well, see, if I start to answer my question to my wife, and I said, well, I was out with the guys tonight, and then she goes, well, where'd you guys go? We went to happy hour, we went to dinner, or we went to a movie. Oh, what did you see? And so all of a sudden now my wife is in control of our conversation. And so one thing that I learned to do real fast is I started not to so much answer the questions, but answer questions with questions. So in other words, like this, my wife would say, well, where were you tonight? And I'd ask my wife, I said, well, where do you think I was? Well, she'd say, well, I don't know. So all of a sudden, who's got control now? I've got the control. You see, I'm the one asking questions. So I said, well, where do you think I was? And she says, well, I don't know. That's why I'm asking you. And I said, well, do you see how she redirected that question back to me? And I said, well, where do you think I was? And she says, well, I think you were probably out with the guys. And I said, exactly. But now my wife started learning how I started asking questions. So now she started asking me questions with questions. And it's kind of interesting because now I turn around and we have 4 children at home, and I come home and my wife says, where have you been? And I said, well, where do you think I've been? And she says, well, it concerns me that you're asking me where you think I was, and that's why I'm asking you that question. And so, well, the fact that you're asking me this question, honey, I'm concerned because I don't think maybe you trust me that I was out with the guys or something. And she says, well, should I be concerned? I mean, the way you're describing. And so we're going back and forth. Of course, our children are having a field day because they're looking at mom and dad going back and forth. And so I want you to understand that you control your point of contact based on the questions you ask, and I always ask questions. One thing I want to reiterate again, which is, hey, what do you do? That's one of the greatest opening lines, which is occupation. Hey, what do you do? I'm a doctor. I'm an engineer. I'm whatever it might be. Next question is, how long have you been doing it? Another question is, you don't seem very excited about what you do. Because whenever you ask someone, how do you like what you do? I mean, the typical answer is it's okay, it pays the bills, you know, it's all right, it's temporary, and sometimes they say, oh, I'm just doing this right now part-time just to find something else. And so then the next question is, well, you don't seem very excited about it, and they say no, and then the follow-up question is, what are you not excited about that you do? And this is where they start to show their dissatisfaction with what they do. So now the next thing that I want you to understand, another market that we get into is called the friendship borrowing market. Okay, so far we covered the natural market, which is your family, your friends, and again, it's so important to talk to them. Again, if you believe in what we do and the financial products and concepts that we offer, and how this could perhaps enable, it could not that we're saying that every product we have can meet everyone's needs, but at least to sit down and put a comprehensive plan together and letting people know that you're in this field, and so when the time comes, because sometimes they may not be ready and they may always come back to you on a later time. So we know that we got to start to penetrate that natural market. The friendship market, which is turning strangers into friends. And then the last market I want to talk to you about is friendship borrowing. Friendship borrowing, and I want to identify this as, we have an acronym for you, and we want you to use this. It's STEAM. It's S-T-E-A-M, and you can allude to your business format system book, and you'll see something in there called STEAM. And one thing that I do, sometimes when I was talking to a couple of my friends, I was talking to another good friend of mine. His name is Michael, and as I sat to talk to Michael, now Michael is kind of one of those guys that just doesn't believe he can't do anything. I mean, he just low self-esteem, just is not very motivated, and just kind of feels like the world's coming to an end. I mean, but he's a friend, you know, and I love the guy for who he is, but just doesn't have a lot of desire and just motivation. And so when I first talked to him about the business, he didn't show much interest, which is okay because he did become a client. And so one thing that I did ask him is I said, hey, Mike, I said, I know that you're not interested in business, but let me ask you something. Do you know someone who might be a good salesperson? Do you know someone who's a good teacher, someone who's real enthusiastic and ambitious and motivated, money motivated, whatever it might be? And he said, hey, you know what? And I said, what? And well, he turned me to his sister. And his sister came into the business with me. Again, so I contacted the sister, and again, I got that from friendship borrowing because Mike may not have been interested, but his sister was. And I talked to his sister, and then she came in, and we started building. And guess what? We sat down with her, and then we started sitting down and building a business plan for her and putting a market together, you know. And the first thing we did is we got together, and we said, first thing we're going to do is get your top 25. And then she showed a little bit of reluctance because she thought that I just wanted her top 25 to get into her top 25, but it wasn't so much to get into her top 25. I wanted to help her to build her business and to build her company within World Financial Group. And so one thing that I did is I put down the top 25, and we started talking about working together and making phone calls. And so we sat down and we made these calls, and so all of a sudden that business started flourishing. So I want you to know that prospecting is not a difficult thing. It's very simple, but it's something that you're not used to. And as you start to do it more often, it becomes a day-to-day thing. It becomes a part of your day-to-day habit. And I'll give you a good example. I was actually on my way here to Atlanta to make this tape for you for this company and for this group here. And I'm very excited to put this tape together with you guys, this training video, because I think it's such a great thing. And we never had things like this when we were building our company within this company several years ago. But as I got here, from the time I left Los Angeles and coming into LA, I literally picked up 17 phone numbers. 17 phone numbers. And how did I do that? By friendship marketing, okay? And turning friends into strangers into friends. Let me give you an example. When I first got there to the airport at LAX, the first person I met was the lady who's standing behind the counter, the ticket counter, and it just happened that there was nobody in line, and so we just started a conversation, and she actually started a conversation saying, she said, when I first walked up, I actually had our company ring on, and she asked me, she says, hey, well, that's a pretty nice ring. She says, what is that? And I said, well, this is a ring that our company gives when you start to make $100,000 of income, and you know, if you add diamonds in there, it shows you additional $100,000 of income. And she says, wow. So she says to me, so what do you do? I said, well, I'm in financial services. And so now remember one thing, if you know what their profession is, don't ask them what they do. So I asked her, I said, so how long have you been working here? And she said, well, I've been here for about 6 months. And I said, well, how do you like what you do? And so that was the whole thing. And that was my first person. And then when I got into the airplane, I started to talk to the flight attendant, and there were 2 flight attendants that I started to build that relationship with. And then I sat in a seat where there were 2 people sitting side by side, and I started to talk to them. And then then I got out, and then I started going. We went to out into the floor, and we talked to the baggage claim people. And I mean, there were so many different people. The guy who picked us up at the airport, we started talking to him. We got to the hotel. We talked to the ticket counter person. We went out and had dinner. We met that person. Now, we got all these different names, and all these different people are prospects that I can talk to. And I want you to understand that you cannot be afraid to talk to people. People are looking for opportunities, and you've got the ability to talk to people about our story and the opportunities that we have. And I want to just tell you guys how much I appreciate you, and I hope that this video and step 1 of what I've taught you here today will help you build an extraordinary business. Thank you so much for your time. We'll see you at the top.
I'm excited to have a chance to share some ideas with you today about the approach and contact, which Most people would tell you inside the business format system may be the most important component inside our system is the ability to make approaches and contact people successfully in our business. One of the great opportunities